Just remember, the stuff presented by this creepy bear is from the Evolution 101 website, written by the Understanding Evolution team. Commentary by Rent-A-Friend 2000. That's me!
In fact, biologists have a lot to say about what is and is not an adaptation. Misconceptions about natural selection. Because natural selection can produce amazing adaptations...
Okay, hold on again. Natural selection can produce adaptations. Give me a second, I'm going to write this down in my notebook and save it for later. Haha, alright. Natural selection can produce amazing adaptations. Got it, alright, go ahead.
Thank you. Because natural selection can produce amazing adaptations, it is tempting to think of it as an all-powerful force, urging organisms on, constantly pushing them in the direction of progress. But this is not what natural selection is like at all.
That is correct. It's more like a forest fire or a controlled burn, destroying certain things and leaving others behind. To be clear on this point, young Earth creationists have no problem with the process of natural selection. We discovered it. We simply understand that it is not a creative force. It subtracts. It does not add. Again, I don't want to get all fundy right-wing Baptist evangelical on you, but if an effect requires that you add, then you can't cause it by subtracting. That's a little trick I like to call math. I hope I'm not getting too technical for you.
First, natural selection is not all-powerful. It does not produce perfection. If your genes are good enough, you'll get some offspring into the next generation. You don't have to be perfect. This should be pretty clear just by looking at the populations around us. People may have the genes for genetic diseases. Plants may not have the genes to survive a drought. A predator may not be quite fast enough to catch her prey every time she's hungry. No population or organism is perfectly adapted.
Now we're talking metaphysics, not science. What would a perfect animal look like? Sophia Loren? Well, I'm not saying it isn't worth thinking about. I'm just saying we've left the realm of science and have gotten philosophical. They keep this up and we'll soon be sitting in the woods talking about our feelings to the sound of a pan flute.
Second, it's more accurate to think of natural selection as a process rather than a guiding hand. Natural selection is the simple result of variation, differential reproduction, and heredity. It is mindless and mechanistic. It has no goals. It's not striving to produce progress or a balanced ecosystem.
This part is true. No part of evolution has goals. But not every evolutionist knows this, which is why some teach pre-adaptive evolution. No, really. The theory here is that evolution can cause cells or species to hold on to something which, while useless now, will come in handy once they've evolved a few more parts. This is the trailer park view of evolution, where redneck cells have piles of tires next to a transmission and an AM/FM radio cassette deck, which they're holding onto so they can get a few more parts and finally get that stock car up and running. Come on, evolution! Just a few more parts and that pole position is as good as mine! Get her done!
This is why need, try, and want are not very accurate words when it comes to explaining evolution. The population or individual does not want or try to evolve, and natural selection cannot try to supply what an organism needs. Natural selection just selects among whatever variation exists in the population. The result is evolution.
Did you catch that? Wait. Natural selection just selects among whatever variation exists in the population. I couldn't have said that better myself, even though I've already said it. Remember, in the previous section they said, adaptations are well fitted to their function and are produced by natural selection. Do I need to say more? Because unless they can find some really clever way to make produce and select mean the same thing, which the English language stubbornly does not allow, then they are amazingly wrong. Read this sentence again. Natural selection just selects among whatever variations exist in the population. The result is evolution. Remember how I asked for a better definition of evolution way back in the first couple of chapters? Look at what they have said here. A reduction in the genetic and physical variations in a population is evolution. So if you take their definitions and their examples and you put them together, evolution is a loss of genetic variation in a population or species. And this is the process by which bacteria become wolves and cabbages? I don't think so. I really don't. Nope, do not think so. Not thinking it's so. No, sir. No. We've already been over this, but removing parts from the Honda Odyssey does not produce the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Oh, how I wish it did. Consider DNA again. It is information, a written coded system which results in the production and functions of all living things. To turn bacteria into wolves and cabbages requires great gains in the genetic information, the DNA, over time, as even a cabbage has a great deal of genetic information which no bacteria has. Obviously, natural selection, which above they describe accurately as mindless and mechanistic, cannot create any information. Where did DNA come from? How has it been improved? Information only comes from a mind, not mindless mechanistic purposes. All life is a testimony to God's brilliant creation and design, and when we say He is the author of life, we mean it literally. He is the writer of all DNA.
At the opposite end of scale, natural selection is sometimes interpreted as a random process. This is also a misconception. The genetic variation that occurs in a population because of mutation is random. but selection acts on that variation in a very non-random way. Genetic variants that aid survival and reproduction are much more likely to become common than variants that don't. Natural selection is not random.
That is a bold assertion, but you have to admit, a very weak argument, especially when you couple this idea with the genetic drift concept they've already put forth. If you recall, stepping on some beetles causes the population to evolve. If becoming roadkill isn't random, I'm not sure what is. I'd suggest that if becoming roadkill is not random, then technically it would be an assassination. But I digress. What they fail to admit above is this: nature does not select. Nature has no mind or awareness, and thus it cannot choose. Just step outside and shout, "Hey nature, do you want pizza or takeout Chinese tonight?" You'll never get an answer. Natural selection is a category under which we can put certain events, just as the word vegetable is a category under which we can put certain plants, and certain US senators. But natural selection cannot cause anything to happen any more than separating vegetables from squash can create a pumpkin. If a species goes away, and it wasn't hunted to extinction, we call it natural selection. But I assure you, nature didn't select anything. It's still trying to decide between pepperoni pizza and kung pao chicken. Don't bother waiting, you should just order. To go on a bit of a tangent, this speaking as though natural selection makes things happen is the same error people make when they speak of the law of gravity as though it were a literal law, a force, or even an authority who demands certain behaviors. The law of gravity is an adjective. It describes how masses are attracted to other masses, but it does not cause them to be. It only describes to us how they are. This is related to similar discussions because, in trying to argue that the universe could come into existence without God, Stephen Hawking tried to argue that as long as there is a law of gravity, the universe will make itself. But if there is no universe, then there is no gravity at all, let alone some authoritarian law. When science tries to put itself in the place of God, it becomes more Cartoon Network than Mr. Wizard. I hope this hasn't been too technical for anyone. This is a complex subject, and I could have made this episode far longer, with lots and lots more information. But that would have required me to delete random parts out of this version. Blindfolded. Over millions of years. Did you see what I did there? Huh? Okay, I'm gonna call it a day. The delivery guy is here with my Kung Pao chicken pizza. Join me next time for more. Whee!